Yeah, so that he can spend, what is it, time with his remaining limbs. Hello, everybody, to our new listeners. Welcome to our old listeners. Welcome back. We are the Perspective Potterheads, Jenny B and Terri T, and we are here to discuss our favorite fandoms, starting with and primarily featuring Harry Potter content. If you like our content, like it, and if you love it, share, subscribe, and support.
Today, we will be discussing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Chapter 12, The Mirror of Erised. While we are talking about Chapter 12 in Book 1, we will cover multiple books, multiple chapters, books that we don't even know we're going to talk about yet. So, spoilers ahead. If you haven't read the book, I highly suggest pick it up, read it, and then come back and listen for our perspective.
Yes, it's super helpful if you read along with us. So, like, I mean, I post on Facebook all the time, like what chapter's coming up next. And if you don't know, we're on chapter 12 today. So read chapter 13 for next week. So we've been talking about the pictures at the top of the pages here. And it's very straightforward this time.
It is.
Sometimes it is.
It is Harry looking in the mirror, and you can see like there's like shadows with lots of like basically indicating lots of people.
Yes. So we find out later that that is his family, which is nice, which there's so many of them. So they're all, I mean, with so many people in his family, the Potters, the Evans families, and then all of them are dead except for Petunia and his cousin. Dudley. So
unluckiness.
Yeah, very unlucky.
So I like the chapter starts with that Christmas is coming.
Yeah,
it's always exciting. Christmas is exciting. They are talking about, okay, my first note, this is in pure Weasley fashion. The Weasley twins were punished for bewitching several snowballs so that they followed Quirrell around and bouncing off the back of his turban. Basically, Fred and George have been throwing snowballs at Voldemort's face.
Yes. But they don't know. So they don't know that Voldemort's face is on the back of Quirrell. So they're just throwing snowballs at a teacher.
I know, but if they knew that was Voldemort, they so would throw snowballs at him. Like, that is so them.
So would Voldemort show up on the Marauders map?
I wonder about that.
I mean, that would make a little bit more sense for them to throw snowballs at a teacher. But at the same time, if Voldemort is showing up on the map, they should be telling somebody.
The map, though, and I don't know, maybe, and this is something like, you know how we kind of talk about like ADHD and that link, that ADHD Gryffindor link? The Weasley twins arguably have very poor impulse control. They have some of those indicators that they might be ADHD kids.
Yeah.
Attention to detail, depending on what it is. Like, but they can see my mom, example, my mom at work, she notices everything and she will pick out like a random, like she would be the one, like Alan picked out the Severus in the letters above the book. Like that's something my mom would see as a detail. But my mom was like playing music and we were getting ready to move to Columbus and Alan was selling his motorcycle and he tipped his motorcycle at the end of the road. And he came in and he's like bleeding down his arm. And my mom is just like, da, da, da. She like doesn't notice. Like it took her like saying, Mom, where's the Band-Aids? Hey, Mom, where's the first aid kit? Mom, where's the peroxide? Like needed gravel. And it was really, really like, he was going very, very slow, best possible scenario. And he had been moving the bike from my grandma's to my mom's, like, you know, we can walk. So it was one of those, like, he didn't even think to put on long sleeves, but anyway, like she didn't notice. And that's the thing, like, if she like, so I'm wondering, because they say like, well, why didn't the twins notice that Pettigrew was on the map? They might just not have, like, that was not a detail that interested them, so they didn't notice.
Yeah. Because they're on the lookout, because they're troublemakers. They're not watching their brother. They're watching for where the teachers, like stuff like that. But with Voldemort, he doesn't have a full body. It's just his soul. And it's attached to somebody else. So I don't know that it would show up at all. But like, if his soul could show up on the map, if Voldemort was there with all 7 of his Horcruxes, like they'd be like 7 Voldemorts showing up on
the
map.
Horcrux show up? Oh no, the room of requirement isn't on the map.
But also, I don't think it could, because if they ever looked at Harry, then Harry would see himself and Voldemort. Okay, I think we just solved that.
So the Horcruxes
right?
do not show up on the map.
Horcruxes
Harry's obviously looking at his own dot, so he would see Harry and Voldemort.
And because the Horcrux is a part of the soul, and because at this point Voldemort is only that piece of his soul attached to Quirrell, it wouldn't show up. Okay, we solved that.
And would we also that also would be like the map with Ginny,
right? Yes, when she has the diary. Yes.
How many of the Horcruxes have been to Hogwarts?
Not
Harry's
the cup.
Harry's at Hogwarts.
The cup was from a founder, so at some point she would have had it, but not as a Horcrux.
Yeah, I'm thinking as a Horcrux.
As a Horcrux. Okay.
The diary.
The ring.
The ring, because Dumbledore brings it back.
Right. The fake locket, but that's not the real Horcrux.
No, the real locket does not come to Hogwarts. Nagini.
The cup does.
Yes, because they have to.
Yeah, because they have to stab it with the basilisk bane. Harry is one.
Mm-hmm.
Voldemort is one, because he has like the piece that's in his soul. What's the last one? Did we already say the locket?
Diary, the locket, cup. Diary, the locket, the cup. I did this the other day while we were having dinner. And I know. Was like, I'm going to figure it. They're like, I'm going to look it up. I'm like, don't you dare look it up. I know it. Diary, the locket, the cup. The diadem. The diadem.
Diadem.
That's at Hogwarts. That's hidden at Hogwarts. Yeah. Nagini. Diary, locket, cup.
I know. I'm going to write them down. Nagini. Diary, cup, Nagini, Harry.
Locket.
Diadem. Okay, so the diadem, yes. Harry, yes. Nagini, yes. The diary, yes. The cup, yes. So the locket is the only one that is not a Horcrux there.
Mm-hmm.
So hold on though. No. Okay. I'm trying to think when he got the locket, but that was the ring.
Yeah.
Did I put the ring on here? I don't think I had the ring on here.
I don't think you listed it, but I think I counted it.
Okay. That's right. Because Harry wasn't supposed to be there. So there should be 7. And I only listed 6, the ring. So yeah.
So the locket's the only one that isn't at Hogwarts as a Horcrux, which is interesting. I don't know why that's interesting to me, but that is.
Yeah. Although maybe it is, but we just don't know it.
Yeah.
Because Mundungus steals all the stuff from
Grimmauld Place.
And then he ends up getting it taken by Umbridge. Because we know that in the 5th book, Mundungus is stealing stuff. Or is that in the 6th one?
It's in the 6th.
In the 6th one, we know that he's stealing stuff from Sirius's house. And then Dolores Umbridge comes to Dumbledore's funeral.
And
if she had already taken it from Mundungus then she would have been there at Hogwarts with that locket around her neck there. Ironically, because the locket was what they were looking for in the cave.
I know.
It was like
that would be a real big twist of irony right there if she was wearing the locket at the funeral.
Oh, I just listened to the audiobook and I know that it would have been a great thing. I'm fairly sure, because I was not paying attention, but it would be an awesome detail if Harry would have noted
that she was wearing a necklace.
That she was wearing a locket, a necklace, something like that. You know what I mean? That would have been a great detail.
I think the only detail they give is the unconvincing look of it's an unconvincing look of grief or something like that.
Yeah. That was a fun rabbit hole.
Yeah, that was. I liked that one. And we're still on the first page.
The first sentence.
So all from throwing snowballs at Voldemort, which I love. I just think that because the Weasley twins are they're
so chaotic.
so much excitement. And I'm just like, they were throwing snowballs at Voldemort. Something I hadn't thought of. I've read the book several times, listened to the book several times. Never occurred to me that they weren't just throwing snowballs at Quirrell. They were bouncing snowballs off Voldemort's face.
Yes.
Yeah. Go Fred and George. I guess the weather's really bad.
Yes.
In that's something I noted. Nothing. And that it's very, very cold in the dungeons.
So the owls that are flying their way through the storm have to be nursed back to health by Hagrid, which I thought is interesting because he is not the care of magical creatures professor.
But he is the groundskeeper. And I think that just, and everybody knows he has an affinity for.
Yeah. I was wondering if he's actually like, because that was the thing. My question is that part of the grounds duties, or is he like unofficially the care of magical creatures, like assistant, or is he just doing it because he does it for free?
Well, we know Professor Kettleburn is like 2 years out from retirement.
Yeah, so that he can spend time with his remaining limbs. So maybe he just can't because he doesn't have enough limbs to take care of these birds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so cold. They
huddle next to
in the corridors, especially in the dungeons. And do they have no magical way of heating the castle besides a fireplace?
They do mention in another book that they take to wearing their gloves in the corridors. And it's not here, but in another book, I remember it. And I don't know which book it is because I can't remember.
So they have no way to keep their castles warm.
I don't know. And they mention it. I don't know that they mention it there. And then I think they mentioned it again in the fourth book when they were talking about as drafty as the castle is, they would rather be on the castle than in the Durmstrang ship or the Beauxbaton's carriage. Right. Those look pretty cold. I don't know. Some of the things it's just like, it's not important.
Yeah. I mean, you would think that keeping your kids warm, because when they go up to bed at night in their dormitory is like, I mean, how many blankets are they going to need to keep themselves warm?
They said Gryffindor Tower, the common room and the Great Hall had roaring fires. And I remember in one of the books, they mentioned that they put warming pans in the sheets.
Okay.
And they have the hangings, which is that's why they used to have everybody had the big beds with the hangings because it kept you warm.
Yeah. Okay.
I really always wanted a bed like that.
Luna kind of has that. Well, it's not the hangings, but she has that canopy over her crib.
Evelyn had a little canopy for a while. I would love a canopy, but my parents have a canopy on their bed and it collects dust.
Right.
It really collects a lot of dust. You have to be very meticulous about dusting. And I am not.
I always wanted one when I was younger, but then when I was older and thought about things like that, then it's it's extra work now. I gotta wash those things.
It's like everyone's like, don't you want a bigger house? No, because then I have to clean a bigger house.
Yeah, exactly.
I can make my house guest ready in a couple of hours, nice. From a pit to guest ready in a couple of hours because it's small. Anyway, so Draco Malfoy's being a jerk again.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly.
Yeah, right. No one is surprised. Oh, I do feel sorry for those people that have to stay at Hogwarts because they're not wanted at home. Mm-hmm. Not wanted at home.
Which Harry doesn't mind. He's so excited for this. He doesn't want to go home.
This is going to be his best Christmas ever.
Ron gets to stay there. And I don't think Ron would mind either because he's always got that family full of people and all that stuff. And I'm sure that Mr. and Mrs. Weasley kind of like some peace and quiet because they're always there with all the kids. And now they just have Ginny.
Yeah.
So
they take Ginny to Romania to visit Charlie. Yeah. So they're spending Christmas with Ginny and Charlie. It's interesting in a large family, how that kind of works. There's lots of moving pieces, especially as everybody starts to grow. And we're starting to experience this, we're all grown. So coordinating family Christmas is one sister coming from Alabama, one sister who's married and she works in the medical field. So she's, juggling a schedule. Is she off Christmas or Christmas Eve? When are we getting together? My schedule with my 4 littles, my sister, my other sister, she's got a boyfriend out of town. Is she spending Christmas with him? And then the baby now has, I probably shouldn't call her the baby anymore. She's going to be 20, but the baby has a serious boyfriend now. And like, when is she doing Christmas with his family versus with our family? So it's,
yeah, can't get anybody together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it might almost be nice to see like, hey, half of you guys are at school. Cool. Stay there.
Yeah.
I like that like Malfoy can't get anyone going that about making fun of Harry about the Quidditch match.
Mm-hmm.
He tries and everyone's like, yeah, no.
So that's why he's got to go back and fall on the making fun of him for not having proper family.
Yeah. Which is in such bad taste. Like Harry is an orphan.
Yes.
Don't be a jerk.
But then but nobody says anything to him. Like the Slytherins, Crabbe, like Goyle, they're all just, they let him, like they encourage him.
They encourage him to be a jerk.
Yeah. And then Snape comes around and because Ron like lunges at him or something, right?
Well, he makes fun of Ron's family saying he's trying to earn extra money because he offered to be helpful to Hagrid, which is really a telling thing. Like Ron, like Hagrid's carrying this giant Christmas tree and Ron's like, hey Hagrid, do you need any help?
I don't even think he'd be able to help.
No, probably not. But he offers.
It's a nice gesture, yeah.
And he's like saying that the Hagrid's hut must be paradise compared to like what
the hovel they live in or something like that.
Which I like the Burrow. I have kind of, my house is over 100 years old. It was built by my great grandparents. It has been reconfigured several times. It used to have an upper story that was taken off. It had to be like reconfigured. The bathroom needed to be moved because my great aunt who lived here was in a wheelchair for a while. She lost a leg due to diabetes, which if you have diabetes, take good care of yourself because you don't want to lose your leg. There's my little plug.
Also, I have an aunt who had diabetes who went blind. So take care of yourself.
Please take care of yourself if you have diabetes. Yes. Do the things you need to do to keep yourself in your sugar under control. But they, my house has been reconfigured. It's not in the best of shape, but I love it. It's my home and it is fun. And I love that it's I'm not like freaking out when my kids spill blue hair dye on the bathroom floor because guess what? It's an old house and it's fine. There's that blue spot is going to match the other spot and the spot in the corner and yeah. So I guess I very much like the Burrow as like just a place because it reminds me a lot of kind of like
home.
Yeah.
And so Snape comes by seeing Ron lunge at him. And then Doc points at him.
Yep. Because he's a jerk.
Yeah. He is. and Hagrid tries to stand up, who's being provoked.
And fighting's not allowed.
But Hagrid didn't do anything to stop Malfoy from provoking them or saying anything. He just let that happen.
But Hagrid is not yet a teacher. I like when Hagrid becomes a teacher, he does start standing up to Malfoy.
Yeah.
I like when Malfoy's like, I'm not doing that. And Hagrid's
yes,
I hear you make a nice ferret. I love when Hagrid can get a dig in on Malfoy because Malfoy is just so nasty about Hagrid and has been. Anyway. So now Ron and Harry are grumpy and Hagrid's like, come into the Great Hall and see this. It's Christmas. Right.
So I had to look up the word festoons, which just means adorn, but that wasn't the first definition that came up when I was. So festoons, the first definition that came up were like bags under your eyes, but they're not just like regular bags. They're like jowls under your eye, like very deep hanging skin. And I was like, that can't be the right definition.
So I guess I didn't. This is where I'm really bad about stuff like this. I never I just kind of guess it at meaning. So when I thought festoons of holly, and this kind of makes sense, I kind of see it as the swoops. So that makes sense. Like
if you just Google festoon, then you get like the eye pictures and stuff like that. And then if you Google festoon definition, then it gives you adornment or to adorn. And then I was like, okay, that makes sense. And that's how I read it in my head. But at the same time, I like to Google those things. You're like, I don't know this word, so I want to make sure that I'm thinking that it is what I think it is.
I did have to Google something in this chapter, and I'll bring it up when we get to it, because I actually was like, I wonder how much. Anyway, so they're watching the 12 towering Christmas trees, which become a thing. Like they mention it in every book.
Yes.
And I like that they have like glittering with candles and icicles, and it sounds beautiful. Mm-hmm. I love a well-decorated Christmas tree. One of these days I will have a gorgeously decorated Christmas tree. Right now, when we do Christmas, my Christmas tree is child decorated Christmas tree.
I hate decorating. Like it's too much time to just put it up just to take it back down. So I decided, and I don't know how well this is going to work because Luna's still a bit young for it, but I'm planning on just buying a bunch of felt, like having a felt board, and then she can use like they have like Christmas felt pieces and Easter felt pieces, and then she could just decorate, and then she could redecorate all that she wants, and it could change all the time, and just have a nice section of, instead of a full real tree or plastic tree that I got storage and all that stuff, roll up the little felt thing and put it in a bin and set it off in a shoebox somewhere and done. And then rotate it out for like every holiday of different things.
I don't decorate I have a couple Halloween decorations. I have a Halloween decoration that I leave up all year, except for at Christmas, because I replace it with a wreath. I have a sign on my door that says "Home of the Wicked Witch and all her little monsters." And I just leave it up because I call my kids my little monsters. My mom got it for me. But I love decorating for Christmas. My mom is a Christmas nut. She loves Christmas, loves to decorate for Christmas. I enjoy it. I will put the effort in. It's a big deal. Like the weekend after Thanksgiving dinner. So we have Thanksgiving because I do not let Christmas encroach on my Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Because Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because of food and pumpkin pie. Pumpkin pie. Anyway, so we decorate, and then right before, I usually take some time off work around Christmas. So before I go back to work, we take all the decorations down. I hate undecorating. It's my least favorite part.
Right. That's why I don't want to decorate to begin with, because then I have to clean up. So
I feel like it's worth it. Christmas is like a thing. Like
I probably will once Luna gets older and she starts getting into it. But like right now, it's me and Matt.
Yeah.
And Luna's too young to know what's going on, and half the decorations are probably choking hazards. So
we enjoy Christmas traditions of decorating is a big thing for us. We always put a wreath on the front door. Like I said, we do it that weekend after Thanksgiving. Typically not that Friday, because that Friday is usually Friendsgiving for us. It wasn't this year. We ended up pushing it way back, just based on when our friend from Washington was able to come in. But we decorate, and then the other thing we do is we do cookies, lots and lots of cookies. This coming Christmas, Luna will be big enough. You are coming for cookie day.
Okay.
It will be fun.
Expect my cookies to be baked from like Nestle's or something.
Cookie day is I do all the doughs.
Oh, okay.
And we just cut out and decorate.
Awesome. Cool.
It's so much fun.
Nice.
It's usually like my sisters will come, and it's such a chill, but it's so fun. And I'm cleaning up sprinkles for weeks because they get like, I was sweeping and I'm like, where did these come from? Anyway, completely rabbit hole. Yeah. Christmas at Hogwarts sounds delightful though.
Right.
But before we get to Christmas, they're off to the library.
Yes. Bit keen, aren't you? Well, then they trying to find, then they tell Hagrid exactly what they're up to. Ever since you mentioned Nicholas Flamel, we've been trying to find out who he is. You what?
And they're like, unless you want to tell us and save us the hassle. I don't understand why Hagrid just doesn't tell them who Flamel is, because they're going to find out. Like, he's mentioned the name. He knows they're not going to drop it.
Right. And I mean, if Hagrid had any sense as far as like knowing that his name is publicly out there, like on the back of chocolate frogs, then, because, yeah, I don't know. But so they've been wondering if maybe, because they haven't been able to find it in the library in the normal section. So they're thinking maybe we should check out the restricted section. So it's for dark magic that's not taught there. So even though you're not allowed to be taught the dark magic, you're allowed to self-teach yourself about dark magic.
So I don't even know, like, so like those books about Horcruxes used to be in the restricted section.
Well, I know, yeah, but Dumbledore got rid of those.
But things like potions that I don't think they want students attempting, but like they discussed them in NEWT. So it's probably like, and you need a note. So like when they're studying Polyjuice Potion, Snape could give his NEWT students, which are probably like 1 or 2 a year at this point, because he only accepts outstandings. Yeah. Which seems like it'd be very hard to do.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there are, in Harry's year, Harry and Ron exceeds expectations. Hermione gets outstanding. The couple of Ravenclaws.
Yeah, there's 4 Ravenclaws, 4 Slytherin, 3 Gryffindor, and 1 Hufflepuff. So, Ernie Macmillan.
Yeah. And I wonder how many of them got the outstanding or added it as an exceeds expectations.
Yeah.
I can almost venture that Draco
probably got outstanding.
Because I think we forget, because Draco's a jerk, but he's also smart.
Absolutely. So I was thinking about this just vaguely when we were talking about Hagrid kind of giving Draco his comeuppance. But like when you get a jerk student, like normally it's one of those, they're looking for like the connection, and Draco, it's based off his dad. So instead of getting in that power struggle with them, it's like, how do I help this student instead of, you know what I mean? But
I do think
teachers in this universe are horrible.
It's also a lot easier to do with 3, 4, 5s.
That's
than
true.
It would be with our big kids. And I can see that. Like, although I had arguably my favorite high school teacher worked very hard to create those connections. He knew everything. He knew who was dating who and what the latest drama was. And he knew everything. You knew, like, and you weren't putting one past him. He was going to figure it out. And he was awesome.
It's like one of those things, like, okay, so we've studied conscious discipline. So if DJ Baptiste were to walk into Hogwarts, he would still, like, he would not, like, who would give that to him? You know what I mean? Like, who would take him from gang leader to graduate? Like, at Hogwarts, who would do that?
I don't think there is anybody. And
yeah,
because I look at, like, unless it was like Slughorn year and he had like that.
So yeah, potentially.
I see that as like Slughorn's thing. Like, he connected with certain students, but it was very, very specific and very much only the ones he wanted.
Yeah. So Slughorn might say, like, I see that charisma in you, you know, but during Harry's school
he takes
time,
Ginny in because he sees her
casting. He sees her hex somebody, which is like, what? But he's like, it's excellent magic. You're very good at that. You're very good at hexing people. So you're not going to be in trouble for it. So, but during Harry's year, like, yeah, like I mean, there's part of me that's like, Draco's, you know, he's pretty mean.
But again,
that is his parenting, like the way he was raised. And then part of that comes down to the teachers not doing their part to help correct that as well. Because he's seeing the teachers now, because they're not in a public school, they're in a private school, they're living there. Part of their job has to be developing their character as well, because their parents aren't there to help develop that now.
But book 1 is set in what year?
Right. Oh, what is it? 91? When they're all like 11 years old, 91, because Harry was born in 80. So and all this stuff. Yeah, all of this stuff, all this education stuff, I guess we don't really know in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
So, good point.
And none of the teachers are young.
Hogwarts to be doing this now. Sorry. Yes. All right. So Madam Pince sees Harry snooping, and Hagrid knows that they're looking. Do you think that Dumbledore knows that they're looking? Do you think Hagrid might say, "Hey, Professor Dumbledore, I accidentally mentioned this. Now they're looking, and I'm just so out of my mind"? Or Madam Pince is like,
if Dumbledore knows they're looking, it's because Dumbledore is eavesdropping. Okay. Or has noticed. I don't think Hagrid's going to tell him that he messed up.
Yeah.
Madam Pince is another one. She's just mean. Scares me. Which is sad because I would really like a friendly librarian, because the library at Hogwarts, again, one of those places that I'm like,
you know who she kind of reminds me of, because she always yells at them, is, have you ever watched All That back in the 90s? And
yes,
what was her name? I don't remember what her name is. I feel like it starts with an L, but anyway, she's the librarian, and and people are whispering, and she's over there, "Hey, no talking in the library." It's just like yelling at them. And then she's over there like munching on chips and being like super loud, and then yelling at people for doing like really minuscule offenses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like that's Madam Pince, because when somebody does something, she yells at them.
Yeah, she like freaks out. Like when they're eating chocolate, or when she sees the potions book.
Yeah.
Complete freak out. So they don't find Flamel in this library trip either. And now it's Christmas break.
And they're playing chess. So, okay, I actually read something about this recently on one of the Harry Potter things. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not notice that? Because Ron is really good at chess and strategy, which comes in handy when they're playing chess later. But chess is like sending troops into battle and organize, and that should come up later when they're actually having a real war. And it doesn't.
Yep, Ron, they're not involved in strategy at all. It's the Order of the Phoenix and the Teachers of Hogwarts.
Yeah. So they set this up, but again, it's a setup. They're playing chess to set up playing chess instead of actually putting some strategy and then using strategy later.
Because I don't think Ron's exceptional chess skills come into play at all.
Just in the final part of this book.
Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing where I think it kind of could, I mean, and even that, like his chess skills in the book, that comes to play here, but they could have used that in here to set up for future books.
And they don't. It's just kind of like just this book.
Yeah.
But again, when Rowling wrote this book, I'm sure she had the storyline kind of thought out, but I don't think she was not expecting this to be what it was.
Obviously. Yeah. There's definitely a lot of things that she's like, that you could see, but that could have been something she could have looked back on, because I feel like they play chess randomly throughout the books.
And it's the only thing Hermione's bad at.
Yeah.
Chess and flying.
Yeah. With the chess sets, it only comes with one set that you play with. Like Ron has a set of chess pieces that he got from his grandpa, and so Harry has to play with Seamus's.
So I think it is different than like a chess set we would buy, like that has both colors. Like you would want your people, or maybe sorry, you would put your, like if I'm playing versus you and you're black and I'm white, I would take my white chess set and you would take your black chessmen. But if you were, because doesn't white go first? I don't know. I don't play chess.
White does go first. So what happens if we both have white pieces?
That's what I'm thinking. Like I would have my full chess set, but they're my men. So whatever color you have, whatever, like if you're going first and you're white, I would use my black.
But they play on like it's a checkered board. So my pieces would have to play on black or white. Like you're supposed to play on your own color.
You would have both sets.
But I'm talking about the board. You're like the black pieces are only supposed to start, like they're supposed to be lined up on certain, like your king is supposed I think it's the king is supposed to be on his color. So
it would just be their king, but you would have the board and I would take my black pieces and you would take your white pieces, or I would take my white pieces and you would take your black pieces. I think we've overcomplicated this.
Probably. If anybody is watching this and you know about chess, message, put it down in the comments how wizard chess would work. Let us know.
I do have the Menor Mall had big chessmen out. I have a picture of Jamie riding on the knight. And I'm like, look, you're playing wizard's chess. It is funny. My children enjoy playing chess. My husband likes it, and they will get the chessboard out like when we do evening activities, and I tell them they have to pick a quiet activity, which is books, coloring, board games.
Okay, so we need to get Alan and my mom together because my mom loves chess and I am horrible at it. And I actually bought her wizard's chess for Christmas. So yeah, so your kids can actually play wizard's chess if they want to. We gotta coordinate that.
Okay.
Speaking of getting Christmas gifts.
Yes. So
Harry gets Christmas gifts.
I love how he's like, oh, I have presents. Like, and then I'm like instantly like, my heart is sad. I feel very sad for him. Yes. Like, oh my gosh, he's so surprised about presents.
So Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia send him a present.
Yes.
So is this the first one that he ever gets from them?
They usually give him things like Uncle Vernon's old socks or a coat hanger, things like that. They send him a 50 pence piece. So I had to look this up. This is where I Googled.
Okay.
Because I was like, how much money is that? And so I typed it in and it was really weird, like the results I got. Because I guess like different 50 pence pieces with different pictures on them are like worth more. But the general value of a 50 pence piece is 50 to 80 cents.
Okay. I assume like that it's approximately close to the US dollar.
Yeah, it is
kind of like Canadian money
in the 90s. For some reason, 98 stuck in my head. So, and I was like, that's when the last book is set. But I Googled it as via 98 and it said 50 to 80 cents. That could be wrong, but that's what Google told me. And that's what I kind of figured. They're not sending him anything valuable.
Yeah. So their note says, we received your message and enclosed your Christmas present. What message?
So I wonder if Harry sent them a message that said, I'm staying at school.
Or does the school automatically say something?
I don't know.
Like maybe McGonagall or Dumbledore sent something.
Yeah, your child has signed up to stay over the break.
Right.
So he gets the 50 pence piece. He gets a whistle from Hagrid. Which will come in handy.
Yes.
Love those little things that are just like, here, this is here. Hermione gives him chocolate frogs, which again, come in handy next chapter.
Yes.
And he gets a Weasley sweater.
Mm-hmm. And some tasty fudge. But I think he's really excited about that sweater, I think.
Yes.
So
this will be the first of many Weasley sweaters that he gets. And then there's another package. It's very light. What's this? Not like the broom-shaped package.
Right. Which is so obviously a broom.
But I told you, and I said we were going to bring this up. I ordered a broom. A legit, like I ordered a straw broom because I like the straw brooms. I think they work better. I don't like plastic.
I agree.
I'm a weird hippie person. That you cannot like go to the store and buy them. It's weird. So I ordered mine on Amazon because it was only $16. Woohoo! So I am pulling into the driveway in my van, talking to you on the phone, and I'm like, I wonder what that big thin package is.
And it was a broom.
I'm like, oh, it's my broom. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Okay, Malfoy.
Hang on.
One eternity later.
This is what a package looks like if you order a broom.
Just imagine the owls carrying that.
I know, right? But yeah, so that it can happen. So anyway, he's like looking at this package And so he's going to unwrap it. I will read direct quote. Something fluid and silvery gray went slithering to the floor where it lay in gleaming folds. And Ron's like,
yes, I've heard of
they're
those.
really rare and really valuable.
It's an invisibility cloak. I'm sure it is. Try it on. Which my mom pointed out is different because in the movie, Harry actually puts it on first. And then he's like, I know what it is. Well, yeah, you do. Because he turns invisible. So, but in the book, it makes more sense when he sees it first and says, I know what it is. So.
So there's a note.
Yes.
Your father left this in my possession before he died. This time it was returned to you. Use it well. A very Merry Christmas to you. And I like, this is the first time we see the description of Dumbledore's handwriting, thin, slanted handwriting. I believe Dumbledore has impeccable penmanship. I almost think his being very pretty. I do not have impeccable penmanship.
It's a nice font in the book. So I like to think that the font is matches it fairly well. But I know that they can only do so much in print. So I do have that, going back just a little bit, that when Ron sees the 50-cent piece, like, he's like, what a shape. This is money?
It's a weird shape.
Are Knuts? Oh, is it? It's not round.
Like hexagonal, octagonal, something like that. It's
really.
I looked it up. I'll have Alan put a picture. But
okay.
There it is. It's like,
okay. Because in my mind, I've never seen a 50-cent piece. I'm thinking of like what our US 50-cent pieces like.
And they're round. But yeah, it is round. An interesting shape. It's different.
Okay. That's good to know. No wonder why Ron was.
Because it came up with it. Obviously, it's Google. It came up with pictures.
So Harry gets his cloak, and then Fred and George kind of walk in.
So he's like, hide that. Yes. He doesn't want anybody to know about it yet, which is fine.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
Yes. Which I love this the scene with Fred and George. Or should I say Gorge and Forge and Greg.
I actually, Harry's doesn't have a letter. Like, she doesn't think you forget your name, but we're not stupid.
We know we're called Greg and Forge.
And it's just hilarious.
It is.
And it's funny because you would think there are two sweaters that have G's on them because George would have a G and Ginny would have a G. I don't know if they're different colors, but I've seen like a comic where they show them wearing the wrong sweaters.
Ginny's and it's like a crop top on George, and he refuses to give it back to Ginny. I was just going to mention that one. That's such a funny comic.
And then Percy's like, what's all this noise? Because he's Percy.
P for prefect.
Like, I like how they're like, put it on. And they're like,
it's lovely and warm.
I love the interactions between Fred and George and Percy. Like, they live to antagonize him. And it's great. It is such a younger sibling kind of relationship, especially boys.
But it's Christmas, and the way that they're doing it is just very light and fun, though, too. Like,
and Percy is so serious.
Yes.
That they're always trying to lighten him up.
Yeah.
So you can't sit with the prefects. You have to sit with us because Christmas is a time for family.
Yep. And then they frog march him, his arms pinned to his side by his sweater.
So then we have Christmas dinner. I love food.
Yeah.
I want to go to a Hogwarts feast.
So much food.
So much food. Those house elves are busy.
Yes. Roast turkeys, mountains of roast and boiled potatoes, platters of chipolatas. This is where I should have started Googling things again. Yeah. Tureens of buttered peas, silver boats of thick, rich gravy and cranberry sauce, stacks of wizard crackers, which are not crackers, but they're the party favors. Yeah. Which is actually like a British thing, because we don't do that. Like that's not an American Christmas thing. So then I started thinking, is that just like British muggles and British wizards just have always done that? Or maybe some of the muggle-born wizards brought the tradition into,
I don't know. Now I'm thinking I need to add this to our Christmas traditions. We should get crackers.
Yeah. But they're still not going to be like as fun as these Hogwarts
obviously they're not going to
like,
have a real admiral's hat and white mice and
that would be so cool though. And the teachers are all getting drunk.
Yes. I think that's the best part. Hagrid, of course, we've discussed Hagrid's alcohol problem. Hagrid is very drunk. He kisses Professor McGonagall, but she's had enough that she doesn't reprimand him. She giggles.
And blushes, yes. Oh, it's so fun.
So they're
they just have fun for a while until they get back to the dormitory. Ron passes out like instantly, but then Harry gets to settle down and think about this cloak some more.
Mm-hmm. And he has this like hesitation, like, should I wake up Ron? And he's like, no, I really just want this to be mine.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of times that Harry has that little streak of independence because he's always had to be independent. Like he could not rely on anyone. And he learns to rely on Ron and Hermione and like lean into them, but he still has this little like independent streak. And this is one of those times we see that very strong. Like, I want to do this on my own.
Yes.
So he's going to the library because that's where we go. If we could go anywhere in this castle, we're going to the library.
Well, first he doesn't even know where he's going to go. He's just like, I'm going to sneak out. And then once he's out, he's like, use it well. Aha. Now I can find out where Flamel is. So he just knows he wants to get out, which I think is very much like his dad.
Uh-huh.
Like, and
he gets that from James.
Yeah. And since it's his dad's cloak, that's very fitting. And without him even knowing it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, but he wants that connection with his dad. So that's why he doesn't involve Ron and stuff. And then he decides that he's going to do the right thing. He's gonna, to him, the right thing is to sneak into the restricted section of the library. And the fat lady is a horrible security. He just walks right through her. Who's there? She doesn't let anybody know, or does she somehow alert Dumbledore that somebody snuck out somehow?
Like, kids, because they talk about it. The fat lady's been there for years and years and years. Okay, because in I think it's in the fourth book when Molly says, oh, she gave me such a telling off when I came back to the dormitory at like 4 a.m. or something like that. What were you doing out of your dormitory?
Right.
I was out for a midnight stroll with your father.
Right. Which then he should have been getting reprimanded at the same time. You'd think they would have went back together, right?
He got caught.
Oh, that's right.
He got caught and punished.
How did she not get caught then?
He probably was like, go.
I could see Arthur doing that. He's very, what's the word? Chivalrous.
Mm-hmm. That is a good quality. I think that would be it's a Gryffindor quality, but that is definitely an Arthur Weasley quality.
Yeah.
The restricted section sounds terrifying.
Right. Well, the descriptions of the books are really intriguing to me. Like how do they describe them? Where is that section?
Hang on. I have it. So they're peeling faded gold letters spelled words and languages Harry couldn't understand. Some had no title at all. One book had a dark stain on it that looked horribly like blood.
So like the outside of these books are telling such a story of like the peeling letters and the gold. And so like to me, like there's just like that mystery behind what is in this book because we don't know what's in its book. It has no title. It's got this stain on it. Yeah. And there's been something I've been seeing on Facebook lately. One of the memes that says something about always grab the books with the covers that are more worn down because they're good books. People want to read them. Yeah. So to me, those books, like I'm intrigued by them. I want to know the story behind the story and like what is in there that makes them so good. But of course they're covered in blood. They're full of dark magic, and they're only divided by a rope. Yeah. Harry just steps over it. Like,
but if it's during the day, Madam Pince is there policing.
Yeah. But if somehow they caused a distraction at one end of the library, couldn't somebody just reach over and grab a book?
I wonder because clearly there is a protective charm. Because when he opens that book, it screams. Oh,
yeah. There should be something before you even open a book, though, you would think. Or was it just that one book was a screaming book? And you just had the bad luck to...
I just assumed that that's like a charm. Like it's a security alarm on the books. So the book screams and he goes running. Ducks under Filch's arm and runs, and to the point where he's lost. He has no idea where he is. Mm-hmm. But apparently he didn't get very far.
Right. Because Filch is right there.
And so is our dear good friend, Professor Snape. Mm-hmm. Again, putting Snape right there in the midst of things. And him and Filch are already in cahoots because Filch was helping him bandage up his legs. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we end up, and I mean, Snape would love nothing more than to catch Harry.
Yes.
Nothing more than to catch Harry. So he sneaks into this classroom. Like, I just imagine him like shimmying through like a door that's barely open.
Yes. And the thing is, it is already opened. And when they saw Fluffy, Harry was so preoccupied trying to figure out, like, are they gone, that he didn't even notice the big 3-headed dog. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking in this point, he's trying to look to see, is Filch and Snape gone? Did they get away with this? I think Dumbledore's already in the room. I think that door was open because Dumbledore was there.
Yeah.
So, and then Dumbledore sees him and then makes himself invisible. And because Dumbledore knows that Harry's there, mm-hmm. and he knows that he goes back the next night and then the third night.
Yes. I didn't think about that, but that's probably pretty true. The Dumbledore is there already.
Yeah.
Maybe he was putting the mirror there. I don't know.
Right. So I want to know what class that used to be.
I don't know. There's a lot of unused classrooms, and they say that's because the population in the Wizarding World has dwindled. Yeah. But I really enjoy that. Like the thing that Harry wants to see is himself invisible. Yeah. He wants to look in the mirror and not see himself.
So the interesting thing, I have this somewhere way down, but that brings up a good point though, because the question I have later when Dumbledore is talking about when Harry says it shows what you want, and Dumbledore says, no, it shows the deepest desires of our hearts, because what Harry wants at that moment is to just look at himself invisible. Mm-hmm. But deep down, his inner desire, without like consciously bringing it to the forefront at that time,
is his family.
Is his family. So that answers my question for later. But
I also think it's interesting that it took him a minute to recognize them. Like, he doesn't know who all those people are because he's not allowed, like, he's never had photographs of his family. And I'm just, again, this was a moment where I was like,
I know.
Like, it made me very sad. But then he's sitting there, and then there's a noise. How long? I'm assuming he sits there for a while. He just sits there to look at his parents and his grandparents and his, extended family.
And his mom is crying. So I'm wondering if there is some sort of consciousness in the mirror versions of themselves where she knows she's dead and this is the only way she can see her son. And like, I want to say hold him because he's reflected in the mirror where she's able to touch him.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like my heart is like sinking into my stomach right now.
So sad. It is so sad.
So, okay. I got to talk about the phrasing that goes across the mirror. I texted you that. I posted it on our Facebook and our Instagram page because the way that it is broken up is the spacing is all sorts of weird. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to try to read it backwards because that's what it is. It's backwards. If you read it backwards, it should say, I show not your face, but your heart's desire. But the spacing should be, I show in one word. No Tayo how would you say that word?
I have no idea.
Or Faka or Fak? Toyo or Art's Desire. Like if you go by the spacing, which is just weird that they would space it like that and not space it.
I don't like that it's different. I think it makes it more complicated because it's not it jumps right out at you as to what it is.
But I mean, if you're gonna do it backwards, like then why just not make it like squished all together? But yeah, the spacing is just weird for me.
So eventually he stops staring at his family and says, I'll be back. And he heads back to Gryffindor common room. And Ron is like, you could have woken me up. Like, hey, how'd you go without me? But I like how Harry's like, I want to see your family, because that's what he thinks this mirror does. It shows you your family. And Ron's like, you can see them any old time. Just come around this summer. But it does take, it's funny because Harry does come around in the summer. And then he spends, he's in Diagon Alley staying with the Weasleys, but he sees the Weasleys again the following summer. And it's not until the 4th book that we meet Bill and Charlie.
Yeah.
But
they're abroad, so I wouldn't imagine that they come home as often.
So
when they do go looking for it again, Harry has a hard time finding this place, but he's determined. He's gonna see it again. He's gonna see his family again, and it becomes more important than Flamel and Snape and the mystery and adventure that they all had with trying to figure all that stuff out. But then Ron is just slightly inconvenienced because it's cold and they're not finding it. It's been an hour. He wants to give up. And that's some good foreshadowing to book 7.
Yes. Ron reminds me a lot of my Jamie. My Jamie does not handle being tired, hungry, hot, cold.
Yeah. That's
feeling unwell.
Yeah.
He has disproportionate reactions to being slightly inconvenienced. If the kid is hungry, oh my, gives a whole nother meaning to the word hangry. And the kid is always hungry. He is bottomless pit. So yeah, I have one of those in my house. He does not like to be slightly inconvenienced by things like being cold or hungry.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It is fantastic foreshadowing for Ron in book 7. Like he can't handle roughing it.
Yeah.
He's never had to, though. And this is interesting because Malfoy makes fun of Ron as being like this poor kid. And you think of like children in poverty, you think about food insecurity, things like those. Like those are the things that come to the forefront of my mind, like not having utilities. But those aren't things that you really have to worry about in the magical world.
Right.
But it's interesting, like Ron gets in front of this mirror. Ron's like, here, he moves Ron. He's like, here, come stand here. And Ron's like,
because when Harry's in there, he can't see Harry's family. He can only see Harry. Yeah.
He's like, here, stand where I'm standing. You can see them that way. And Ron's like, does this show the future? Which clearly it does not, because Ron does not become Quidditch captain or head boy.
Right.
But so Ron's like, hang on, you had it all last night. And they actually get into like a little bit of a tussle. Like they shove each other, which is interesting because they're best friends.
Yeah.
But and again.
But you have exactly what you want right in front of you. Like, I mean, it's so hard to like, if somebody's standing in your way for what your heart desires. Yeah. And Harry's like,
it's like, you're just holding the Quidditch cup. What's so interesting? Move.
Yeah. And it is really interesting. And not that one is necessarily better than the other, because all of their circumstances are so different. Like, because my first thought would be along the same side, like the same lines as Harry. But then again, I have never lived Ron's life. Like to him, that is what's more important. But, and it's only at this time, because I think that
go ahead.
I think if Ron looks at this like later, like after the Battle of Hogwarts, he would probably see his whole family. I'm gonna cry.
And it is interesting, and because I did ask, like, I'm the oldest, so I get to do everything first. urine only. There isn't that competition. And it is interesting because I did poll my sisters and, you know, I said, hey, is this like a thing? Like, because I feel like we all have our own like little niche. And not surprisingly, the almost baby, not the baby, but the almost baby was the one who said she has a lot of those similar like feelings of Ron, like being overshadowed and not being able to live up to. And it was a really interesting and a really telling conversation. You know, Ron is 6th. She is the 4th. Like that, you know, as much as my parents praise our individuality and stuff, we all like, there is, I guess, a level of competition and, you know, and I wouldn't even call it competition. I would say just, you know, everybody has their thing. And as you start, like so many people, like Bill was really smart and was head boy. Charlie was really good at Quidditch. Percy's going to be like Bill.
Yeah. Perfect Percy.
Yeah. And I think, and again, I don't judge. There's no judgment and there's no mom judgment in this with Molly, but Molly favors Percy quite a bit.
Yes.
For whatever reason.
Not sure.
But I feel like Percy is like an accommodating child. Whereas I feel like you have Percy and he's like super accommodating, well-behaved, angelic. And then you got Fred and George following. It would be hard.
Yeah.
So they're pushing each other. And they hear a noise and they like throw that cloak back on. And it is Mrs. Norris. Is it a British thing to name your cats like Mrs. or Mr. something? Because there's Mrs. Norris, sure. Mr. Tibbles.
I'm Mr. Bigglesworth.
I think cats in general have a little bit more of that that kind of like those fun pun type of words, like names, instead of dogs. Yeah, I saw a post. I saw an animal post on Facebook the other day that was talking about something like that, about how dogs only have like one word names, and they're usually something, you know, more meaningful, more human. But then like cats, people get really weird with their cat names and stuff like that. So maybe they're just trying to fancy up their cats, and you know, there's a lot of fun cat pun names that I've seen at the vet's office and stuff like that too. So
my cats are usually named for Harry Potter or literary characters.
Our cats are Link, Zelda, and Reptar.
So. I have Millicent or Millie, and she's Slytherin. And then I have Ophelia from Hamlet, but she is known as Baby Kitty. Because when we brought her home, she was this teeny tiny little thing, and they all called her Baby Kitty. So she just is Baby Kitty. Because my husband's like, well, that's because you named her Ophelia, which is dumb. I'm like, don't judge my name.
My first car's name was Ophelia, so come on.
I had a black stuffed cat that I named Ophelia when I had first read Hamlet. It's my favorite Shakespeare. Not a Romeo and Juliet person.
Yeah, I don't really get into Shakespeare. I've read him. I never read Hamlet, but I've read, you know, for class and stuff, I've had to read some Shakespeare. But when I was in this sorority, Ophelia's name came up in something, and it just sounded a very classy but old-fashioned name, and that was my car. So like my car was old. It was an 85, and I was driving around in like the 2000s in it. So it was an old car, it was an old name, so it seemed to fit her.
I didn't name my first couple of cars. My daughter named my Pilot Flower, and the van is now Appa from Avatar, because it's big and white and gets us around places. I said I need to get an arrow decal for the front of it. So they get back. They wonder if this cloak is going to work on the cat, which is interesting because this comes up later, I think in book 4. It comes up a couple of times. And so I think what Harry ends up deciding is that Mrs. Norris can smell him.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in book 4 when he's got all that bubble bath. But
if this is the true cloak of invisibility, handwoven by death or whatever, then it's supposed to not be able to, like, nobody can see it. No charms or anything should be able to lift it. I think we run into some issues early on because I don't think she knows that yet, that it's going to be like that. So
Moody's eye can see through it. But
yeah,
that I think can be explained. Like, it is a fabric, and it's different because, like they said, either invisibility cloaks are either have a disillusionment charm on them, which you could obviously reverse,
right?
Or they're woven of demiguise hair, which I don't know a whole lot about the demiguise.
Yeah,
but he, disguises himself, and again, anything like that could be. I think of it like any other fabric that would wear out.
Yeah. So I know it doesn't wear off, but I don't remember exactly what Xenophilia says, but I know it has something
Renders
to do with
the wearer truly and completely invisible, which it does. Harry is invisible, but it doesn't mute your sound. So he realistically
not your sound or not your smell, but as far as like charms and stuff like that on it, like, and I know we see that later, but I feel like we'll probably see it at some point in this book or the upcoming books, and I'll have to check that quote. But I'm pretty sure that there's something that it's like, and I don't think Moody should be able to see through it because his eye is doing the charm, and
I don't think so. I think it just sees through different layers of things because he can like zoom in and out.
Yeah,
because that would just be completely awkward.
Yeah.
I think Lavender Brown or Pravati Patil says that eye is creepy and shouldn't be allowed.
Right. Yeah.
I kind of feel the same way. So I like how Ron is very much like, no, Harry, this is a bad idea.
Right. And Ron has a little bit of that wisdom. He learns this stuff from his dad because Ron is the voice of reason a couple times.
Yeah, like, don't open that book. It's a book. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you.
Yeah. Have you seen The Mummy, Ron? Come on. No harm ever came from reading a book. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. That used to be one of my favorite movies.
I love that movie. I want to watch it now.
Ooh. I would want to watch it with me. Anyway, especially because the main character's name is Evelyn.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
So he wants to go and do stuff, but Harry doesn't want to. Yeah. So
and this is, again, I think we see some foreshadowing of them in book 7 here. Because Harry's got something and he is obsessively worrying and thinking on this thing. Like, I want to see the mirror. I want to see the mirror. Whereas in the book 7, it's the horror or the Hallows. But I think it gives us a good indication of their minds and their personalities and some of that sort of stuff. So that I think that's interesting, like those foreshadowing. And I don't even know if it was intentional or not, but that's just.
But it comes back, which is why his chess playing should come back as well.
So I like how this time he gets there. He gets there quick. He knows where he's going. He sinks down. To stare at this mirror. And nothing's going to stop him from sitting there all night. Except.
Right.
So back again, Harry. And I feel like we've got some really great Dumbledore quotes.
Oh, yes.
In this. Like, and Harry, the only thing Harry can think to say is, I didn't see you.
Yeah. And he's just sitting on the desk.
Yeah, Harry walks right past him because he's not invisible at this point. But Harry is so focused that Harry's like narrow-minded focus.
Yes. Which Dumbledore is so agile because he's not sitting at the desk. He's sitting on the desk. And then he jumps down from it. And then he goes and sits on the floor with him. For 100 and something year old. I mean, most people
I want to be in that good a shape when I'm in my hundreds.
Right.
Why did I make it that long? I don't know. I'm in my 30s and I feel like every year getting up and down off that floor with my preschoolers is harder.
Yes.
I'm like, whoa, when did this get hard? But again, first, strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. It's that quirky Dumbledore wisdom.
What is Dumbledore doing there, though? Like, because
He's
Dumbledore knows he's returned twice. So is he really waiting for Harry? Or if he was in there the first time before Harry was in there, is Dumbledore still doing something trying to get the stone into the mirror? And if Fluffy is already guarding all of those things where the mirror should be, why is the mirror here and not where Fluffy is?
I think that is, and like Harry said, it was just kind of put there, stored out of the way. And I think that maybe that first night, Dumbledore was getting ready to do something with it, but then he wants to see how this plays out.
So, but what are we're Christmas now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for the last September, October, November, December, 4 months. Yeah, I know my months, I swear. for
Get Alex to come help us. He was just singing his months of the year song the other day.
Thank you. That was helpful. So for 4 months now, Fluffy's been there, but the mirror hasn't. So where's the stone been?
I think the stone's down there, but I think now that Dumbledore's getting more and more worried because there's no way Voldemort is able to get that stone out of the mirror.
Okay.
He can't.
So he had all the other stuff already set up, but now he thinks that that would be my Quirrell or Voldemort's getting closer. So now he's got to add an extra layer of protection.
Mm-hmm.
And okay.
And I like how I love Dumbledore as a teacher. I think he would have been a phenomenal teacher to have like learning because he wants Harry to draw conclusions and he asks questions. He doesn't just say, well, it does this. He's like, he gives it like, what do you think? What do you think? Kind of stuff. And again, good teaching.
Yes. I still don't know, like to me, when he says the happiest man would be able to use the mirror of Erised like a normal mirror. That is, he would look into it and see himself exactly as he is. And I feel like just because you're happy doesn't mean that you don't have deep desires.
I don't know. It depends on your personality. Like some people are always striving and some people are always content.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, but I feel like it's still very general. I feel like that's not going to get you to the answer of it shows you your heart's desire.
Mm-hmm.
To me, those two things aren't necessarily related.
I don't know.
So
I always feel like there's room for improvement and I'm always striving for something. Like that's just my personality. So
yeah, same. That's why I feel like even if you're happy, you still
it doesn't
have
mean
desires.
that I'm not happy for what I have. It just means that I could always do better.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when you ask me what the Mirror of Erised shows. Like we talked about this the other day. Like, what does your Mirror of Erised show you?
It would depend on the day. Like earlier today, I'm like, my hair looks like Hermione. It's all crazy. I would look in it at that moment and see myself put together. Like, because that's what I want at that time. But I don't know, maybe like Harry, like if I wanted to see myself looking like in a certain way, but it knows my heart's desire, I might see something that I wouldn't expect to see. So my next thing is one of the great quotes. I think it's good about it showing neither knowledge or truth. Because like there's so many times when people just want to hear things that they want to hear without caring if it's right or true. And I mean, like I think Dumbledore says at some time, people waste their lives in front of it. Yeah. Because and to me, that just kind of relates to certain things that we do even without the mirror. Like we just waste our lives believing things that don't bring us knowledge or truth.
Exactly.
And
it says, I'll read the actual, I'll read the quote because I have the book open. Okay. However, this mirror will give us neither knowledge or truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. Because sometimes the things we desire aren't necessarily things that are even possible. Like Ron would never be head boy. They don't go to Hogwarts in the 7th year. Like, it's just not something that's ever going to happen. I mean, they don't know that at that time, but it would never, like, he can't be head boy. He didn't go to school when it was time to be head boy.
So, and then there are things that even though we want them, they're not necessarily good for us.
Right.
So for example, spoilers for the Sookie Stackhouse series, I think it's like one of the last books, somebody trades their soul to the devil so that he can get the girl of his dreams. And the thing is that he gets her, but the reason that she was not taking his advances before was because she was HIV positive. And so once he trades his soul and he gets the girl, she just says yes, does not tell him, and then he becomes HIV positive and everything. And so, like, that book was written in like the early to mid 2000s, which, I mean, it has come a long way since then, but like back in like the 90s, it used to be like a death sentence if you got that diagnosis. So it's but that's the point, is like, even if it's something that you really, really want, it's not necessarily something that's good for you. And it's the same thing as far as like dogs. They really want chocolate sometimes because they see you eating it and they think that they want it, but it's not good for them. And babies, the same thing. They think that they want it, but they can't have it because it's dangerous. It's not safe. It's not good for them. But parents and adults and humans, like, they know better, and sometimes that's the way things are with God.
Exactly.
Like, you're like, why can't
that was what I was going to say. Like, he knows, like, that's not your path. And very interestingly, this brings to mind the concept of, I don't know if you've ever heard the country song by Garth Brooks, Unanswered Prayers. And it basically talks about how he's at this football game and he runs into the girl that he was in love with in high school. And he remembers like praying all the time, like, God, please, please, I want this girl. I want this girl. And the last verse of the song says, he turns and he looks at his wife and he's like, thank you, God, for not giving me what I thought I wanted, because this is what you had waiting for me.
Yeah.
And that's, I always I talk about like timing and things like that. Like, sometimes there's no explanation for bad things.
Right.
But, I think about like my pregnancy, and I had kind of been I'd been really thinking about wanting another baby this last time with Ellie. And we had gone out of town in September, and I was really hoping that that was going to be when I got pregnant. Had I gotten pregnant at that time, one, we would have had babies like together. Yes. But if I had similar complications, I would have missed a big chunk of work. I would not have been allowed to be on activity restriction at work, because it's our busy time. It's when we have kids. I couldn't just sit in a chair. Whereas getting pregnant later, having Ellie later, and who knows, like, if I had been pregnant earlier, would I have had the same complications? You never know. Like, there's all that things, but that being pregnant over the summer, while not fun, worked to my advantage. I did not need to take an entire huge leave of absence. So interesting.
Okay. So there is something, like, as cool as this mirror is, I would be freaked out by it. So when a mirror does not show you the exact reflection of what it's supposed to be doing, to me, that is horror movie-esque. Like, that is, or some sort of like alternate universe sci-fi crap going on.
Funhouse.
Like, it's haunted, or they're trying to take over, something is off. So there's an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. I don't remember it exactly, but I remember the look on the kid's face. Like, somehow he gets sucked into a mirror, or the mirror image comes out or something like that. And then at the end, like, you see the kid, he's like right-handed, and then at the end he's left-handed. And like the smirk that he just gives is like, it's totally freaky, because the kid that's living in the house with his parents and family is the mirror kid now. Ooh. The real kid, like the main character, is trapped in the mirror world now. Like, they switched, and the smile he gives is so freaked out.
Big part in like horror stuff.
They do. And like there's a lot of superstition, there's a lot of magic and stuff that goes into mirrors.
Broken mirrors, things like that. Yeah.
I'm watching Disenchantment and they have a whole thing. Like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But like
I don't do
they
horror.
have in the last season of Disenchantment, spoilers, there is a like some scenes where Bean gets trapped inside of the mirror and she has to get out. And like there's a thing with the dreams too, and all of these kind of, I don't want to say doppelgangers, but essentially that's what they are. And they try to just take over each other and kill each other. Like they're the evil version of something, but mirrors are used in like witchcraft and like, I don't know, like the Bloody Mary and all those other things. So to me, it's creepy. I would honestly, I would never want to look into the mirror of Erised. Like, have you ever just stared into a mirror, like straight into your eyes, like in a regular mirror? And just like without blinking as long as you can, I swear you start to like hallucinate stuff and it goes like, especially if it's very dimly lit. It's creepy.
Not doing that.
Mirrors are creepy. Don't do it. It's creepy.
Not doing that.
If you want to get creeped out, do it. But
no,
honestly,
I do not enjoy scary things at all.
No,
ever.
But mirrors are creepy, and this mirror of Erised is creepy because it's not showing what is actually there, and it's so weird, and I would hate it, and I would never want to find it. But then again, they're in Gryffindor.
So they're
like,
brave.
They're brave. Me, not so much.
You're hanging out in Hufflepuff, and I'm over there in Ravenclaw, and
you're hanging out in the kitchen with the house elves, just munching away.
And I'm sitting there reading a book. Because that is all the excitement I can handle in my life is what's going on in my book.
Yes.
So this is where we'll draw to a close with Dumbledore's lie. First of many.
Oh, I was actually going to say his last thing. I don't remember if it was in the one in that, because that was like a long that he talked about. But that whole, it does not do well to dwell on dreams and forget to live. Is that a second part, or is that in that big thing? But I think it's on the next page. So, but I think there's like a part to that, like, you know, I like, because that's the thing is like we always hear the follow your dreams and stuff like that, especially in like Disney movies, and like there's a bit of reality, but also there's a bit of like the opposite too. Like if you think that you can make your dreams come true, like follow them until the point where they actually stop being realistic. You know what I mean? Like it's a friendly balance. It's on page 214 in my book.
Yes.
But so I almost seem like this is like,
you can get, and this is something that like it happens a lot to people, and I know I'm guilty of this. Like you get so caught up in the thought process about it, and I'm very like I'm always in my headspace. So I'm constantly thinking about like, what am I going to do? And what can I do this? But to get it like moving from thoughts to action is very difficult for me. Like that first step is very paralyzing. So I can see this, like you can live in your head or you can live in the real world.
Yeah. And so there's got to be a balance between the two.
Now on to Dumbledore's lies. He lied.
Yeah. Harry asks him, can I ask you something? And I hate the response. Of course, because you just did. Like, just because you ask somebody, just because someone lets you ask them something still does not oblige them to have to answer you truthfully.
Yes.
Which is what Dumbledore does not.
And I think it's like,
as we see, because Dumbledore lies to him. Yeah.
And it's the only personal question Harry ever asks Dumbledore.
Yeah. And he lies to him. And then this comes back in the 7th book too.
Secrets and lies. And Dumbledore doesn't, it's interesting. Dumbledore does not have close personal relationships.
Mm-hmm. Just like Voldemort.
We've talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because he lost his family. Him and Aberforth are not close because of that loss.
Yeah. And because I think
lost
he gave
his family, lost his love interest.
Yeah, I think because he gave so much to Grindelwald, and then Grindelwald just kind of broke his heart. Like he used him to get what he wanted. And like then he's just so afraid for 100 years later to just bare his soul to anybody else.
Mm-hmm. Vulnerability is a rough thing. Like vulnerability, authenticity, those are hard things.
Mm-hmm. So why socks? Why do you think that is his answer? Like, it's just like the first thing that popped into his mind, or is there some sort of
maybe he did really
symbolism?
want a pair of socks. Maybe his feet were cold. I like fuzzy socks.
But then socks come back to be a thing too.
Yes, socks are a thing in the book.
Yeah.
Dobby.
Dobby gets his socks. So the one last thing that I have is Scabbers is on Harry's pillow. If his curtains are drawn, do you think that Peter Pettigrew goes back into his human form when nobody, like when Harry and the boys are, and then when he hears them coming, he goes back into a rat?
I wonder that. Like, how often does he become human, or does he just like being a rat?
I would hate just being in an animal all the time, I would think. Like, so when like the Weasleys go out for like vacation and he's left home alone or while they do their grocery shopping, he just wanders around as a human. Probably as often. I mean, I would do it as often as I could if it was me, but
I think Pettigrew likes being a rat.
I feel like he's got to stretch his legs sometime.
I don't know. I think he likes being a rat. You just nap. Maybe.
So I have quite a few, but they're all small for the audiobooks.
Okay, no like change of paragraph.
I don't think so. But there were more than what I was expecting. And so normally I leave myself half a page, but then I had to go and start on another section because I didn't give myself enough room. So when they're looking for Flamel's books over a fortnight versus 2 weeks, they're toasting crumpets on a fire but in the book it's English muffins. The next day versus in the morning, which was Christmas morning. One time they say Happy Christmas instead of Merry Christmas. Every other time they say Merry Christmas. And dressing gown, bathrobes, sellotaped, taped, going a bit pink versus turning a bit pink, jumper, sweater, sweets and candy. The chipolatas in the audiobook are described as fat. They're fat chipolatas, but there's no descriptor in the book. Crackers versus party favors. When they're talking about the crackers hat, in the book it says inside the hat, but the word inside just isn't in the book or in the audiobook. So at one point they're having tea, but in the book it's meal, which has crumpets in the book, not English muffins. So it's weird that they wouldn't keep it crumpets as the beginning and change that to English muffins. But when Harry's passing Filch, it's in the audiobooks, it's almost at the doorway. And then in the books, he's passing Filch in the doorway. The classroom is disused versus unused. And then he sees no other than Albus Dumbledore versus none other than Albus Dumbledore, and short-sighted versus nearsighted. So all a bunch of just small ones this time.
Real small.
But there were a lot.
I wondered with the Christmas and the meal and the foods and things like that, if there would have been more this time around.
Yeah, I was expecting there to be a little bit more with foods because that's usually where it is. But this time it was
foods and babies.
Yeah.
They talk about things differently.
All right. Well, that's our perspective. Let us know your perspective in the comments below. Also, let us know what you would see in the Mirror of Erised in the comments. And before we go, we'd like to thank our editor, Alan, our families, our listeners, and remember to like, share, subscribe, and support. Until next time, stay safe, keep faith. Good night.